on the West Coast, that's where golf is really hot in terms of organized retail crime, and that's why, I like to take the time to speak to this group, because we found in the past, while we were doing these large investigations, these major investigations, that the hole in networking for us, and when I say us, I mean the big golf retailers such as Dick's Sporting Goods, Golf Galaxy, PGA Tour Superstores, we'd be chasing these crooks, but a lot of times we'd find a hole when it came to the green grass accounts, okay? Where, we heard somewhere that—
What do you mean a hole?
A hole in communication. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if we're chasing a crook and they hit a PGA Tour Superstore or a Golf Galaxy, we'd know about it because they have LP people, right? So they would contact us, we'd be able to share intel, and let's say that crook disappeared on us for a while, okay? Well, it turns out they were hitting green grass stores, right? They were hitting pro shops. And this is not just with straight theft, it also happened with counterfeit bills. There were a couple of cases that involved some pro shops when it came to credit card fraud. And the toughest part was you would talk to one pro shop, you would talk to another pro shop and another pro shop. They all experienced the same issue, but because those pro shops don't talk, we found ourselves having to kind of coalesce that information between all of them and get them communicating. So that's why I like doing this, is because I think really at the end of the day, if the golf course industry has someone like myself from a security standpoint to contact, so should something happen, it definitely adds value to the network itself, if that makes sense. So currently we've got a couple of major investigations going on in Southern California. We've got a couple of grab and run artists. These people are coming in groups of 2, and they're taking Scotty Camerons. That's the big thing right now.
Where are they taking them from?
They're taking them from the golf shops. So
you've got video of the same individuals at multiple locations?
Yes, and not just multiple worldwide golf shop locations, but these are the same individuals who are hitting our competitors as well. So we share that intel, and that's how we get with the police. And really, at the end of the day, when it comes to the police and the district attorneys, the more victims there are, okay, when I say victims, the more companies that are involved, the more success we'll have in terms of getting police to really get after these individuals. If there's one victim, typically police won't react, but if you've got, certainly 3 of the biggest golf retailers out there and a bunch of smaller pro shops out there complaining about the same individual, they'll act. Another thing too is we're typically hooked in with some of the major organized retail investigators from a law enforcement standpoint. See, a lot of people don't know this, but while organized retail crime, while the crooks grew, law enforcement also grew or changed to combat the problem. Especially now with all the legislation and all the news surrounding the issue, law enforcement is investing more than ever into investigating these criminals. One organization that we work very closely with is the CHP's Organized Retail Crime Task Force. These people are great. I mean, they don't look like regular cops. They have beards, tattoos. They dress like electricians, contractors, shoppers. And what they do is they follow these crooks, and instead of having like a knee-jerk reaction to every incident they see, they play it smartly. They'll watch them hit like a Target or a Dick's Sporting Goods. They'll follow them for miles and watch them.
So why CHP and not county sheriffs or state
Be-
police?
because the breadth of their and the scope of their jurisdiction. Okay, what if a crook hits in San Bernardino County? Okay, you get the San Bernardino County investigators involved. Once they hit that Riverside County line, their powers are diminished. But if you get the CHP involved, they're statewide, you know, and they also have the network under the same law enforcement umbrella. If you get, because that's how big these things are, right? They could be in Indio one day, okay, and they're hitting a shop in Indio, then they're in San Rafael in Northern California by 8 o'clock that night, hitting another store. This is what they do. So that's why the CHP has the big team to handle these things. So yeah, right now we're chasing a couple of crooks out there. And what I'd like to do, John, if everyone is okay with it, whenever we start chasing someone, we have what you call BOLOs. These are it stands for be on the lookout. Okay, and what I'd like to do is start sharing these posters with you all, and you know, whether or not you want to, you know, the various golf courses want to share the information with their employees, or they don't, that'll be up to them. But I think the more people that see these folks, the better. Is this webinar set up for questions at all?
Yeah, it is. The attendees can raise their hands in the Q&A box, or they could, you know, they could even come off of mute as well when they raise their hand to speak. So yes, they are.
Okay.
Now, is there, you know, when we run into these situations, being operators of golf courses, the first reaction is just to call police, like 911, or the city police that the club happens to be located in. Is there somebody else that we should be contacting? You mentioned the CHP task force, you know, maybe not them perhaps, but is there other entities that we should be reaching out that would be more customized to what our problem is? I mean, like a lot of times you have a break-in a car in your parking lot at your club. You call the police, they come out, they take a report. You know, you got people on video camera, perhaps it's descriptive, perhaps it's not so descriptive, but essentially nothing really ever comes from that. Is there another entity that we should be contacting that's going to be more personalized to that type of offense?
The police, no, in terms of initial contact, the local dispatch is the best to call. I mean, even with us, right, with all the contacts that we have, if I were to call the CHP, for example, my buddies at the CHP, if I were to call them directly right after we experience a major hit, the first question they'll ask me, have you called local yet? You know, so always contact local first. It's their jurisdiction. You have to file it with them because they're the ones who are going to put the initial report on paper. And if any other entities get involved, any other agencies get involved, they're going to jump off of that initial report. So to answer the question clearly, always contact local law enforcement first. Now it's in the follow-up, that's the key. Okay, so and I'm going to speak to just retail theft right now. You know, if you experience a retail theft, the big retailers, we certainly want to know about it. We really want to know about it because, as I mentioned earlier, if you experience, let's say, a theft of 1 or 2 Scotty Camerons, right, to a small pro shop, that's a lot. I assume that same person might have just hit one of us, one of the bigger retailers, we just had one the other day for 10, you know. So what is that, $4,000 retail worth of stuff? Now, where your 2 Scotty Camerons might not even equal a felony, if we find out that that same suspect is victimizing us as well, now, then when I say follow-up, instead of having a pro shop, you know, manager following up on an investigation, now you've got your friends over at Worldwide Golf Shops, Dick's Sporting Goods, PGA Tour Superstores, contacting people in our network, meaning the law enforcement people, and tell them, look, we've got a big problem here. It looks like, I don't know, Dad Miller is complaining about this person with Anaheim PD. Now we've got some intel on this person. We've got some complaints against this person. And then CHP, what they'll do is they'll swoop in and they'll take that case off of Anaheim PD's hands, and they'll get after the individual. Now their chances of getting that person off the street are a lot higher because there are more victims involved. You've got a more specialized law enforcement agency involved now, people who are really equipped to handle these things. So I just wanted to throw the question out there. Has anyone experienced any retail theft in the last 6 months or so? John, you're on mute.
Yeah, I got one here. I just pulled up the question box from Mike Vandergoes from the Northern chapter. Good morning, Mike. He's asking, are these thefts more at large retail chains or shops, or are these done at all club locations?
First off, let me ask the question. So you say Northern chapter, is that Northern California or Northern chapter of the Southern section?
The Southern California section of the PGA is a very large section, third largest section in the country. So we have 5 chapters inside the section. There's the Metro chapter, which is LA County and Orange County, respectively. We've got San Diego, we've got Inland Empire, we've got Desert, and then the Northern chapter, which is, you know, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, Solvang, Bakersfield. It's still Southern California, but the Northern chapter of the Southern California.
Okay, great. Okay, wow. So can you state the question again? Sorry.
So he's asking where and I think the answer is definitely large chain retail shops, but he's asking where the majority of the thefts are concentrated around large retail chains, or are these done at local clubs and golf courses?
We found in the past that they absolutely target the golf course shops, the pro shops as well. So just so I might have the wrong vernacular here, but when I say pro shop, in my mind, I'm thinking of the stores on the golf course. Is that the right?
Is that because they're more vulnerable? They're not expecting it, where, you know, you got your Roger Dunn shops and your Golf Galaxies and Dick's Sporting Goods. You know, they've got such a higher volume of traffic that they have to be prepared for that from a business management standpoint, where the green grass clubs are not thinking in those terms, because, you know, it's a more of a positive clientele and smaller space of retail. Is that why?
Yes, absolutely. It's a softer target. I mean, not just within the 4 walls, but even in the approach, right? Think about your typical golf course. You've got a nice long driveway. You've got nothing. You're probably driving along a fairway. It's a soft target versus a retail shop like our stores. We are in more of a the infrastructure is much more conducive to security, because there's probably there are cops closer by. There's usually in a shopping center, you'll see security. You know, it's a different environment. So to answer your question, if I were a thief, I'd have an easy time stealing from a golf course pro shop. Certainly.
So James Signs just jumped in here. He said, my facility just switched to a Titleist rental clubs, high end, you know, just upgraded their rental club availability. These sets are comprised of all their latest and greatest, including Scotty Cameron putters, trying to implement best practices to reduce theft, but the opportunity for employees and thieves is extremely difficult. Any advice for James? He's trying to up the quality and the guest experience by stepping up his rental club inventory. However, people are taking them, and what do you do there? You're trying to improve the guest experience, but you've got this obvious pratfall when it comes to high-end rental clubs.
So I'm going to ask the question just to make sure I'm clear on it. The problem is you get a guest, a quote unquote guest, renting a set of clubs, and they're not returning the Scotty Cameron putter, or they're taking the whole set. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, and it's a good question there, Mike, because I would think that you've got, James, just bear with us here. I would think that when they are renting the set, that you get a credit card, you get an ID, and if it doesn't come back the way that it went out, you charge them for basically the sale of the club that they didn't return. Are you talking about just the guests that are running the sets taking the clubs, or are you talking about just keeping them in inventory and having them around the club and they're getting taken from there by employees or guests or whomever? I'll give them a second to chime in there. Mike Vandergoes jumped back on here and said, if we do have a theft, can we pass on to the local police report to Mr. Mata so that they could be added to the CHP task force?
Absolutely. Give it to us. If it's someone that we believe is connected to a larger theft or a larger ring, we can actually use the intel. I mean, in the retail theft intelligence business, you want, at the risk of having too much, that doesn't matter. Too much is better than not enough.
Reach it out to James for a clarification. Yeah, James is saying storage.
Oh, in storage.
They're being taken from storage, because you actually, someone rents a set of clubs, you've got their information. If it comes back and the Cameron putter's gone, hey, maybe he fell in love with the putter during the round and is going to take it and wants to buy it. You at least have the information. You could tender the sale.
It's an easy way to make a sale.
Yeah, exactly. And while these clubs are in inventory hanging around, they're not exactly on the racks, maybe zip tied in, or the devices that sound when you take them out in more of the big box stores. These clubs, rental sets are usually not tagged like regular retail items to prevent them from being stolen, or they're in the back and they're being taken. A lot of times, maybe the rental sets are not even in an area where there's video cameras on them, because it's not a retail item, it's a rental item.
Now, I don't mean to sow the seeds of distrust here with distrust with what I'm about to say, but for years, part of the loss prevention speech has always been, when you experience losses, typically 10% of your losses are due to inventory issues, paperwork issues, receiving issues, okay? 30% of your losses are due to external theft, okay? 60% of your losses, however, are typically due to internal theft, okay? And certainly throughout, prior to 2018, I followed that percentage that we in loss prevention, we all teach. In the last couple of years, external theft has definitely taken a bigger piece of the pie, but I could tell you 20 out of the 24 years that I've been in business, internal theft has always been my priority. Because you get one shoplifter coming in, they might hit you, even if they hit you, let's say 3 times in 1 month, I mean, physically, they can only carry out so much, right? But you get an employee who's taken from you, think about the different ways they can do it. They can just take inventory, right? Let's say they work 5 days a week. They take one, I'll use something that's a lot more golf balls. Let's say they take 1 dozen of golf balls, Pro V1s, TP5s, one package every week, one package every other day. That adds up. Let's say they take a rangefinder once every 6 months. Let's say they start sweethearting friends, right? Where a friend comes in, they buy one pullover, right? They pay for one pullover, but the employee bags two. Okay, there's so many different ways that employees can take from the business that it's crazy. So what I would do,
You know, you bring up an interesting point, especially in this day and age where it's been, since the pandemic and maybe even before that, it's been difficult to hire staff. And so maybe our threshold for who we're looking for to build our teams with has come down a little bit because we're looking for people. And that opens up the opportunity for us to bring in the wrong people that would do that kind of stuff.
And that's what we're seeing all across retail. What we're seeing all across retail, and I'm sure that like you said, the same thing extends to you all, is there are more people in our stores, and I'm just talking retail in general, that we don't know than ever before. Working in touching the cash, taking inventory, stocking merchandise, receiving merchandise. There are more people in our stores that are strangers, than ever before. So, and I don't mean to say this to scare anyone, but you really have to know that there are sometimes the person who wants to be your best friend and the person that impresses you the most, those are some of the biggest internal thieves I've ever worked. And really, and I don't mean to like I said, I don't want to sow the seeds of distrust or insult anyone here, but typically think about the people who have access, the most access, right? The person who has most keys to the building. Unfortunately, some businesses, everyone has keys to everything. And maybe we need to start thinking about separation of duties, right? Really deciding who needs keys to what, how many keys are out there, and certainly the way we lock up our Scotty Camerons, we're an open cell environment. We have a certain number of product on the putting green in our stores, but with backstock, we keep that stuff under lock and key, and only a certain number of individuals are allowed to access it. Okay. And if we're too busy and that one person who's got that access to the clubs, they might be the only ones who have the key, at least there's a touch point where a secondary individual is involved if they have to give that key to someone else. It's never just one person without authorized access to that merchandise making that access. There's always going to be two.
Well, it's an interesting, it's definitely eye-opening. And you and I have spoke about Jerry Swick before because we both worked with him with American Golf. Yep. And 95% of the time it was inside jobs.
Yeah. Jerry used to tell me stories all the time about some of the things that he was dealing with, It's funny, the way Jerry talks too, he'll tell you that he just got done interrogating an employee, sending him to jail, but the way he says it, it's like he's talking about his grandson's 5th birthday or something. He's just a great guy, right? I miss Jerry.
Yep.
But yeah, go ahead.
So do you have some the vast majority of the PGA members that are on this morning's call work at green grass clubs? There are a certain percentage of PGA members in Southern California that work at Dick's Sporting Goods, that work at Golf Galaxy, but the vast majority of us are at green grass facilities. What are some quick from the hip best practice ideas that you can give us that we can immediately improve our loss prevention without compromising our customer and member services?
Sure. Okay, we'll talk about 2. Okay. So number 1, from an external standpoint, okay, the sooner someone is greeted at the door, okay, the chances of them victimizing you are diminished exponentially. Okay. And when I say
Is
greeting,
that because they feel like they're immediately on the radar?
yes, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. It's like, I mean, there have been psychological studies on this, but let's imagine you enter a room, okay, a party, right? If you're not greeted within the first 15 seconds that you're there, you feel the need to start connecting with people, right? Because you're invisible at that point. No one knows you're there. Well, the same thing goes for these groups. If they're not greeted or approached within the first 15 seconds, or I should say, no one makes eye contact with them, they know they're invisible at that point. They can do whatever they want. Okay. And there are a couple of motivating factors for a crook not to be seen. I mean, it's obvious, right? Number one, they don't want you to physically try to stop them. Okay. So if they go in and they're not on your radar, they know that's not going to happen. And number two, if they do get away with it, the chances of you being able to identify them out of a lineup are diminished as well. So eye contact, you've got to keep that door awareness on at all times. Your employees have to do it. And I'll tell you, I mean, when I go into pro shops, it's a very welcoming environment. Typically you've got your cashier, and they're friendly, but they've got a line of people. Let's say it's 7 o'clock in the morning. You've got 5 or 6 groups getting ready to pay for their round so they can tee off. But sometimes when I walk in, I'm thinking to myself, geez, this is like the best time to come in and steal something. Because these guys you've got 2 people at the register, but no one's looking up, so you got to teach your people to listen for what that door sounds like when it opens up. And regardless of how busy it is, just look up real quick, make eye contact, and smile. Okay, that's all you've got to do. The sooner you do it when someone enters, the better. Okay, now let's say you're in a situation where it's not 7 o'clock in the morning, but I don't know, it's noon, right? You don't have as many individuals getting ready to tee off. And you maybe have 2 people in the store, or you've got 1 person. No matter what, man the door. If you see someone come in and you just trust your gut, if you just feel like they don't belong, okay, go to the door. You're not accusing anyone of anything. You're not, you're not gonna physically try to stop them. But what you're doing when you go to the door is you're presenting a psychological barrier or a psychological obstacle for that this crook has to get over to get outside. Okay. And all you're doing is just, I mean, at least to the rest of the public, you're just standing at the door greeting your customers. But get to the door. That's number one. And then from an internal standpoint, really, I think the first step is controls. If you've got some valuable product, like right now, Scotty Cameron's, like they're always hot, but they're going to be hot to the certainly to the individual who raised the question about the rentals. Keep that stuff under lock and key, and make sure those keys are controlled. If they're in a closet that only has valuables in it, or a stock room, I would make sure we change that lock, and maybe have 2 or 3 keys available for it. So only certain individuals can either access the product by themselves, or someone has to go to them to obtain the key to do it.
And it's like, it's interesting because a lot of us that work at private clubs, the guard is down because you think, you figure just automatically your members are never going to steal from you. But when you factor in the unfortunate reality that the vast majority of thefts come from an internal standpoint, private clubs are just as vulnerable as public clubs. And I'm one of my mentors, director of golf at a very prestigious, famous country club, had a member, a very famous member, who had a propensity for shoplifting. And it's like, you could never be too careful, and it's always going to benefit the operation and your ability to run your operation when you are always open-minded to any possibility and you're paying attention to those kind of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the third thing I would do is develop some form of process to audit. Okay, audit your drawers, because I remember talking to Jerry. He would tell me about shortages at the register all the time in some of the golf courses he was working with. In fact, if I remember correctly, it seemed like cash deposits and drawer shortages were some of the cases he tended to work most often. And I think personally, because those investigations have a paper trail, they made his radar because there was a paper trail, right? I mean, your pro shop manager takes the deposit to the bank opens it up and says, hey, this thing says it's supposed to have $1,000 in it. There's only $800 here. Boom, there's the alert, right? But I guarantee you, if Jerry put his full investigative weight into every single business that he worked with, every single golf shop that he worked with, he would have found a lot more embedded merchandise theft. He and I used to talk about it all the time. He would always ask me for ideas on how to find these things. And my answer to him was, until your pro shop managers are completely trained and aware on how to detect embedded internal theft, you're not going to get anywhere, Jerry, because you're one guy. You got to have that group, willing to work with you. And if you need some advice, let's say you do catch someone, an employee stealing from you, there are certain steps you have to take to protect your company or your business from a legal standpoint. I'm not certainly soliciting legal advice here, but give me a call and I can give you fellow retailer advice. I have no problem with that. The more of us out there who are aware and who are better equipped to deal with this, the better we'll all be. Just one more thing. Are there any other questions? I really like this format, by the way, John, where we're able to answer questions and explore these topics.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when it comes to loss prevention and the overall awareness. We're all in different scenarios. We're all in different situations, but we have a lot of similarities. And the Q&A and the situational analysis is I think what the audience gets the most out of.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a lot better than me having a deck of slides up here, presenting stuff that may or may not have anything to do with the vast majority of the individuals on here. But if somebody raises a question, I'm pretty sure it's a question that a lot of people have. Yeah. So, one thing I wanted to share with everyone, I was at the PGA show last week. And my sole purpose for going was to meet with our brand protection allies on the vendor side. So Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, Ping, Cleveland, they all have brand protection individuals working.
When you say brand protection, you're talking about counterfeit clubs or not
counterfeit clubs and unauthorized selling. Okay. And the third one, pricing standards. Okay. And really what we're doing is, because my team is part of the Golf Retail Loss Prevention Coalition. So PGA Tour Superstores, Golf Galaxy, and Dick's Sporting Goods and us, we chase crooks together. We work investigations together. There have been many times where I've worked with, for an example, with Lisa Rogan, the director of brand protection from Cushnet, where she's working a website that's selling counterfeit goods. Well, it turns out they're selling stolen goods as well, and those stolen goods are connected to us. In fact, I met her because we were chasing a crook who happened to hit green grass shops, and she's very in tune with the theft at green grass shops, more so than I am. So she happened to contact me on an investigation that she was working. It turned out there were a couple of golf courses in the Fresno area that were getting hit by this individual. And she contacted me, and it turns out that this was the same person we were chasing. So it led to the guy's arrest. It was a huge investigation. This guy was getting close to about $220,000 worth of golf retail theft. But my point is with all this networking, the more the better, and getting you all on this call, sharing information, and me being able to, or having the opportunity and the pleasure of being able to share some of my insights with you all. Now within the golf industry, now we've got, how many people are on this call, John?
We have 49.
Now we've got 49 more individuals out there that are a little bit more aware, that hopefully if they get victimized, they'll tell me about it and it'll lead to something. But that's how it all works.
Well, fantastic. And Mike Vandergoes asked if we could share your information for all of the members that are on this morning's Catalyst. We will be sending out the YouTube recording of Mike's interview this morning, and I will include in the body of the email Mike's email and his contact information, and encourage everybody that when these unfortunate events do occur at your clubs, that obviously in addition to notifying the police, to copy Mike in so that he's got the information and he could enrich his knowledge of what's going on. And the exchange of information, there's just nothing bad that will come from it. It's good for all of us. And I'll be getting Mike's information out to everybody that's on this morning's Catalyst. Perfect.
And one more thing I'd like to add, just from an interest standpoint, even if I get wind of some of a thief from this group, and let's say we weren't victimized by this suspect, okay, we're going to do what we can to help, because it's only a matter of time before they hit us. That's the way I see things. So, absolutely share the information.
Indeed. Well, Mike, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, we are very indebted to you for your time in sharing your expertise and your experience with us. This isn't the first time you've done this for us. This is your third Catalyst that you've presented on, and we're very grateful for you volunteering your time to enrich our scope of understanding of what this unfortunate underworld is really composed of in our business. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for all the PGA members that are on this morning's webinar. You will receive 1 PDR credit for being on the live webcast. And like we said a moment ago, we will be sending out the recording of today's Catalyst as a reference. And it'll also have Mike's contact information there as well. Thank you very much for supporting the Catalyst webinar series. We will see you in 2 weeks with Tom Sun at Arrowwood Golf Course down in San Diego. They're about to unveil their new driving range, which has just been outfitted with top tracer technology and a food and beverage component that goes with it. Pretty exciting. I've seen that take place here at the local level where I live in Glendora, with a small driving range that had top tracer technology put in there, and the place is like a nightclub now. So it's amazing to see people enjoying golf in that capacity, especially where it was non-existent prior. So thank you everybody for joining us this morning. Have a great day. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.